Good morning, everybody. Bill Cloud here, and welcome to On This Day. Today, it's the 9th day of the month Adar, and today is the traditional date that witnessed the first controversy between the rival schools of Shammai and Hillel. Now, if you're not familiar with that terminology, these are two Jewish schools of thought that emerged in the 1st century AD and in a time that was characterized by great schism in Judaism. This was the time when the Sadducees, who were a very unpopular group, but who nevertheless led the Sanhedrin, it's when they provoked many in the Pharisaical camp to declare a philosophical war against their rivals. The results for the nation were disastrous. All of the people, Pharisees and Sadducees, were living under the heel of a ruthless and lawless government that despised their faith, that is, the Roman government. They despised them regardless of their religious sect. And so it's in this very hostile environment that these two competing schools of thought arose. Each of them had mass followings, made contradictory decisions, and developed divergent customs. It would be akin, I think, to the thousands of denominations that have sprung up in Christianity over the centuries, each of them who consider themselves to be the sole arbiter of truth. But in spite of the strife that existed between these two groups, there are lessons to be learned. And so we're going to go to the words of the Messiah to see the first of these lessons. In Matthew chapter 12, he said this, "If a kingdom is divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And if a house is divided against itself, that house cannot stand." Now, it's really simple when you think about it. Division that is not wrought of God is going to eventually bring destruction. And that was the fear at that time in the 1st century as the antagonism between these two competing schools continued. And had they chosen to fight for supremacy to rule over the other, had the Pharisees used the weapons used by previous generations of rabbis to fight against the Sadducees, the results would probably indeed have been very destructive. And so it seems that the school of Hillel took the initiative to head off this destruction and promoted a more moderate view of each other's differences. They both retained their differences of opinions. It's just that they come to the place where they could choose to treat one another with mutual respect and, to some degree, admiration. They learned to take in stride the irritation that was created by the differences of opinion and custom, as long as these opinions and customs didn't affect or threaten the basic and foundational doctrines of the faith. The prevailing wisdom was that ensuing generations would choose the view upon which to place the final stamp of approval. Perhaps there's something in there to learn for our generation. We have to learn to live with our brethren who are of a different opinion when it comes to walking out our Father's instructions, as long as those differences don't undermine the basic tenets of the faith. We need to learn how to walk with someone who has a slightly different view of eschatology, for instance, as long as we are both in Messiah. If we're following Him, we need to walk out His commandments and instructions with one another to the best of our ability, with the light that He's given us. To compete for supremacy, whether it's an issue of prophecy or some other secondary doctrine, that's only going to lead to a house divided. As the Messiah said, a house divided cannot stand, and it will not stand. In fact, Abraham Lincoln based one of his most famous speeches on this concept, and as president found out, as the country found out, that a house divided leads to a civil war. And when it comes to God's house, that is not how it should be. So then, here's our thought for today. Let's you and I do our part to bridge the theological gaps that are in the body of Messiah to the best of our ability, without compromising the foundational tenets of our faith. And let's do everything in our power to bring peace to God's house and to God's people. That's my thought for today. Thanks for joining. We'll see you again tomorrow. Shalom.
Like what you're hearing? Become a Bill Cloud Premium Partner to watch or listen to hundreds of hours of teachings and resources on demand. Go to BillCloud.com/subscribe to start watching today.